story, and we'll talk about John Kerry reveals Biden's devotion to radical Great Reset movement from The Hill. This to me is really funny because they say the Great Reset's a conspiracy theory, but it's actually what they've been calling it for some time. The Hill says, in June, elites at important international institutions such as the World Economic Forum and the United Nations launched a far-reaching campaign to reset the global economy. The plan involves dramatically increasing the power of government through expansive new social programs like the Green New Deal and using vast regulatory schemes and government programs to coerce corporations into supporting left-wing causes. Obviously, this is, I think it's a biased view of what they're saying, but to be fair, the World Economic Forum has pushed a lot of left-wing causes as they've referenced the Great Reset. It goes on to say, the two justifications for the proposal, which has been aptly named by its supporters the Great Reset, are the COVID-19 pandemic, the short-term justification, and the so-called climate crisis caused by global warming, the long-term justification. According to the Great Reset's supporters, the plan would fundamentally transform much of society, as World Economic Forum head Klaus Schwab wrote back in June, quote, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies. From education to social contracts and working conditions, every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. They go on to say, internationally, the Great Reset has already been backed by influential leaders, activists, academics, and institutions, in addition to the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. The Great Reset movement counts among its there's a missing word there, I suppose, the International Monetary Fund, heads of state, Greenpeace, and CEOs and presidents of large corporations and financial institutions such as Microsoft and MasterCard. But in America, most policymakers, including President-elect Joe Biden, have been relatively quiet about the Great Reset, leaving many to speculate what a Biden administration would do to support or oppose this radical plan. They go on to say that at a panel discussion about the Great Reset hosted by the World Economic Forum in mid-November, former Secretary of State John Kerry, Biden's would-be special presidential envoy for climate, firmly declared that the Biden administration will support the Great Reset and that the Great Reset, quote, will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. When asked by panel host Borge Brend whether the World Economic Forum and other Great Reset supporters are expecting too much too soon from the new president, or is he going to deliver the first day on these topics, Kerry responded, the answer to your question is no, you're not expecting too much. And yes, the Great Reset will happen. And I think it will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. In effect, the citizens of the United States have just done a Great Reset. We've done a Great Reset, and it was a record level of voting. Kerry later argued that the Great Reset is necessary to slow the climate crisis and that, quote, I know Joe Biden believes it's not enough to just rejoin the Paris Climate Accords for the United States. It's not enough for us to just do the minimum of what Paris requires. So I'm not going to read literally every, the last bit of this. It's clearly an opinion piece, but it's talking about something that's actually happening. Lockdowns. I'm going to ask you, Destiny, your opinion, because you were mentioning before that you're for them.
Well, are we going to talk about the Great Reset or are we going to talk about lockdowns?
Well, we're going to talk about the Great Reset for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless you want to respond to that first.
Oh, that all sounded really cool, I guess. The idea that we have an opportunity to reorganize things based around like some kind of like ongoing crisis that might expose, weak parts of our economy or weak parts of, healthcare infrastructure, whatever. Like, I think the idea of capitalizing on those types of disasters and moving new programs forward, I think is really good. I think it's like pretty standard business practice too, right? Like nobody files bankruptcy and comes back the exact same way, right? Usually it's an opportunity to restructure your business, to get rid of stuff that doesn't work, to improve on stuff that does work. Like, I don't see the horrible part about that. But more specifically, lockdowns or?
Yeah, so I guess the general idea is that when they're talking about lockdowns, they're not talking about COVID. They're talking about the Great Reset and climate change. And that's the gist of what I get from John Kerry's statements. Initially, they said the Great Reset, of global capitalism, whatever, would be due to COVID. It's a great opportunity to do it. But then clearly what their real concern is climate change.
Just because you take an opportunity to, so I think it was Chicago, was one of the cities that had like massive fires that like ravaged the city, and they used the opportunity to rebuild a lot of the city's infrastructure. I don't think people were ever claiming they set the fires just to rebuild the city. I don't think anybody would claim that we want to lock down the country just to further climate change. There might be a way to make that
stop
argument,
climate change.
or to further climate change agenda, anti-climate change agenda. Yeah, that might be an argument that one could make in another world where we aren't topping ourselves every single day with record numbers of infections and deaths. Like if we were Australia or New Zealand and we were doing lockdowns continually, then maybe like, oh, hold on, there's an agenda here. But I mean, like we're losing Twin Towers worth of people every day. The idea that this is just a conspiracy to pass climate change agenda stuff seems like a hard sell to me.
I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it's that they're exploiting a crisis.
But that's good. Shouldn't we do that?
Not necessarily.
Isn't a crisis like one of your best opportunities to like restructure? Like I give with the example of like a failing business. Like if something really